What's good, everybody? Watching this weekend's fights, I'm sure we all saw how Kevin Vallejos absolutely beat the brakes off of Josh Emmett, and we thought to ourselves, damn, I low-key hope Volk retires before he fights this guy, alright? I'm seeing some flashes of a certain Spanish guy that I don't like to see, little Spanish-Georgian flashes, right? I hope he does not fight this guy. And that's exactly why we're here. Today we're going to be ranking the 4 major featherweight contenders from the lowest to the highest chance, in my opinion, of beating our glorious pookie, Alexander Volkanovski, my sunshine. Let's get right into it with the first contender, Lerone Murphy. All my British casuals, calm down. Stay in your seats, alright, guys? This is a ranking from least to most likely. So, yes, I do think Lerone Murphy is not going to beat Alexander Volkanovski. I don't think he's even going to get the chance, alright? It might seem like a crazy pick to put this guy fourth, given that, you know, Kevin Vallejos is on this list. But, man, hear me out. Lerone Murphy, he's old as fuck, and he's not beating Evloev, bruh. This guy's a 33, 35-year-old prospect, bruh. He's not beating Evloev. You know, this is this weekend's fights. I'm going to make a video predicting it Wednesday, Thursday. I just don't rate him highly. Murphy's best wins are against the unproven Aaron Pico, of which he had an impressive finish over, whatever. And Aaron Pico did look good. You know, he was out-wrestling Lerone Murphy in that fight, almost outstriking him. But he's also beat Josh Emmett. Like, that's genuinely his best win is Josh Emmett, who in their fight out-wrestled the fuck out of him. You know, like Lerone Murphy was able to get up, but every time they got against the fence, every time it was on the floor, what this is and that, like Josh Emmett was just styling on him on the floor, and I think he dumped him at one point, like maybe fourth round, third round, dumped him on his fucking head, bro. If Emmett did that to you, what do you think Evloev's gonna do? Let's be real, Evloev's gonna slime you the fuck out in the wrestling, gonna smudge you to death. If by crazy fluke Lerone Murphy beats Movsar Evloev, it's gonna have to be something like a slip on a banana peel, right? He's still the least threatening to Volk by far. Like, I still love to see Lerone Murphy get like his perfect record destroyed by Volk. It would be amazing. He's well-rounded, but he's not super explosive, and he's not really good in one aspect. He has good striking, but he's not like excellent. You know, Kevin Vallejos, excellent striking. Jin Silva, we'll talk about him later. Excellent like angles, excellent mix-ups, super good improvisation. Movsar Evloev, great wrestling. You know, he's one of those Russian guys. If Volk wasn't smudged by Makhachev, Lerone Murphy is not gonna smudge you. You know, like there's no clue. Like, there's no way. Matching Volk up with Lerone, I just see him winning. I see Volkanovski winning a 49-46 decision or a 50-45, and it being like a boring fight where Lerone gets taken like down multiple times, and then when the third of the takedown is established, Volk just pieces him up on the feet, jabs and crosses, like nothing fancy, and just gets that by decision, you know. Loki, since I want Volk to stat pad and just become like the undisputed fucking GOAT, this is kind of the best fight for him because it's like an unbeaten prospect that's very beatable for Volkanovski. Still, I don't think he's going to get here, alright? Next, the man of the hour, Kevin Vallejos. Realistically, because of Kevin's age, because of his experience, and because of the level of competition he's fought, you have to pick like Volk in this fight. He's not the biggest threat to Volk, but my heart fears this man. There's like a instinctual caveman fear that I have when I see this guy fight. I just see the shadow of Ilia Topuria in him. It's like Ilia Topuria is spinning back just to break our hearts once again. Bro, he's spinning the block. Bro, leave me alone. You already knocked out Volk, Holloway, Oliveira. Like, what more do you want, bro? Kevin Vallejos, he's not the most threatening, and he's not the most threatening, but if you ask me of this list, I'd rather Volk fight and lose to the guy that's next, which is Movsar, than him fight Kevin Vallejos. Because what's the consequence of Movsar winning, alright? It's more likely that he wins, yes, but if he wins, it's going to be like boring smudge wrestling. We're going to be like, man, fuck Movsar, you know, boring ass champion. If Kevin Vallejos wins, like, come in close. Let me whisper in your ear. If Kevin Vallejos wins, Volkanovski is going to sleep. Again, the same way Ilia Topuria did to him, alright? We cannot let that fucking happen under any circumstance, bro. We cannot let Kevin Vallejos near Volkanovski. It's one of those situations. Yes, I think Volkanovski would beat him, but I do not want this fight to happen, just in case, alright? I can't see Volk in that way again, folded up against the cage, you know, AI. If we break down the fight, Kevin Vallejos has really good timing, really good patience, and really good explosiveness. However, he does fight in that really heavy boxing stance, the same one Ilia has, and we saw in the first fight, Ilia versus Volk, that those leg kicks, like, they were landing flush, and Ilia was not able to catch him at all. We saw Vallejos knock out Emmett, which is very impressive, you know, seeing that Topuria didn't do it. But I do think, you know, Now, please don't call me a Topoya Glazer, right? But I do think that Ilya could have done it if he wanted to. That's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy because I'm implying that Ilya was just aura farming. But he had Emmett hurt way worse than Vallejos had him hurt, and he didn't chase the finish in that fight. I think, in a way, Ilya saw he had the timing, and he didn't really mind. He didn't really feel the urgency for a finish. You know what I mean? Like, against Bryce Mitchell, against Jai Herbert, where he got dropped, it was a little bit more of urgency. But against Emmett, if you already see this guy's not going to knock me out, he's not going to get me on the feet, you either, like, his thought was either I'm going to fucking, it was a 5-round fight, right? He had, like, multiple 10-8 rounds in there. He thought, I'm just going to, like, 10-8 this guy for the whole fight, or I'm going to knock him out, like, really precision and just, like, sleep him out cold in one shot. So, you know, Kevin Vallejos, I think Ilya could have done what he did here. Kind of a glazed thing to say, but whatever. Essentially, I'd pick Volk to win, but this is like top 2 fights I don't want him to have. This is top 2 fights I don't want Volkanovski to have, alright? Next, Movsar Evloev. Speaking about like devastating consequences to losing, this is like the least devastating outcome. Is Movsar winning a smudge decision against Volkanovski. The path to victory for this fucking pedophile is to smudge Volk against the cage and just farm control time. That's it. That's literally it, bro. At this point in his career, I imagine Volk, he would come into this fight as the underdog. You know, and you know, he always says he likes to be the underdog, but whatever. And I would honestly, I would share that sentiment. I would think that Volkanovski should be the underdog. However, in my heart, I pick Volkanovski. I love glazing. I love the glaze. I can't help it. But yeah, man, Evloev has the second best chance for sure to beat Volkanovski. However, out of all of the contenders that he could beat, this would be the best win on Volk's resume by far. Undefeated Russian wrestler Loki, hear me out. This will kind of be like a win over Islam Makhachev. If you like shape it, if you can shape it in like the perfect way, this is Loki like saying, yeah, man, Volk won that first fight against Makhachev, and he'd win a rematch if he hadn't come in on short notice, right? Anyway, next, John Silva. Welcome to Valhalla, Alexander Volkanovski. Genuinely, like I say this with my whole soul, this is the matchup of doom and despair. Not only would this fucking guy, John Silva, be crying all fight week and just screaming at the press conference, he'd just like come into the fight and beat the shit out of Volk, bruh. He'd probably force him to one of those like depressing late stoppage TKO wins, because I don't think John Silva was flatlining anybody. But it would just be like, oh, it would be so sad to watch, bro. I doubt Silva is gonna flatline Volk the way Ilya did, or the way like Makhachev hit him with the head kick. But it would be like a body, like folds Volk against the cage, empties out, the ref steps in, and like Volk sits down on the cage and he like, you know, puts his head in his hands and he's all bloodied up. Like, oh, I can just see it in my mind, brother. I do not want this shit to happen. In the first round, you know, Volk probably be doing good, keeping him at range. Silva, you know, is like downloading the data Peter Yan style. But then at the end of the first round, I think, or like maybe beginning of the second round, he like throw a weird knee from a weird angle, or he'd throw a teep that would hit Volk in the liver, and he'd like rock him. And then at the beginning of the second round, he'd come out like smelling blood in the water like a shark, and just finish Volkanovski. You know, like kind of like Pereira Yuri too, where Yuri got knocked down with a hook and then got finished in the first 5 seconds. I see that kind of thing happening, and it's just tragic. Even the same way, like ground and pound, like knockdown to ground and pound, and it is just tragic. You know, Yuri's ponytail was sideways and shit. That shit was so sad to watch. But yeah, man, genuinely tragic ass matchup. Doom and despair. This is like the worst thing to think about. And low-key, we hate on Diego Lopez for getting 2 title shots, but we have to thank this man because he delayed this fight. If John Silva had beat Diego Lopez, no doubt in my mind, no doubt in my heart, he would be next. He would be fighting Volk for the fucking title this weekend, or whenever that fight was supposed to happen. But yeah, man, John Silva, he's gonna get a title shot. It was promised to him 3,000 years ago. You know, this guy accepts that APAC money. But I'm just glad it's probably not gonna be against Volk. Please, Volk, retire after your next fight so you don't have to fight this guy. Genuinely, all right? Thank you guys for watching. What do you guys think about these contenders in the featherweight division? Who has the best chance of beating Volk? Who does he fight next? Does he fight the winner of Movsar versus Evloev? Or does John Silva or Kevin Vallejos, do they jump the line now, you know, because the UFC thinks it'll be more interesting? And when does Volk retire? When should he retire is a better question, because who knows what this guy's going to do, you know. He loves fighting. He's a real warrior. Maybe too much for his own good, all right? Thank you again for watching. I'm gonna go do some laundry, alright? Ciao.